Right, like I said, welcome. This is our first session of the Nonprofit Management Institute. Today's session will be covering our orientation, our capacity assessment, and nonprofit management overview. Our facilitator is Dr. Palmer. And I did want to just mention that these sessions are being recorded. It's helpful for folks if they should have to miss a session to go ahead and get the recording. So we'll be recording throughout today and future sessions. This is our 8th cohort. So we've been doing this 8 times, learned a lot along the way, and still have much to learn, right? We're lifelong learners. And so we do have evaluations that come through at the end of each session, which we do read and we do take into account. So we'll encourage you to complete that at the end of each session. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it off to you, Lisa. And we'll go to slide 3.
Good morning. I'd just like to, before I introduce myself and my team, I'd just like to welcome Ivan Canada, our new president and CEO for the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. For those of you who do not know, we just went through a transition of leaders. So Ivan, I'd like for you to, if you wouldn't mind, just take a few minutes to introduce yourself and welcome our participants.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ivan Canada, and I have the new president and CEO of the North Carolina Center for about a month now. So many of you can relate. If you started a new job recently, you know how transitions are, and you are constantly feeling like there's so much to learn. And so with that, I'm excited that I will get to be with you all in your cohort. So I will be a member of the class with you all, and I'm looking forward to being in community with you. And just thank you all for taking the time to do this. I know it's a big lift to give up, 5 Tuesdays in order to make yourself and your organizations better and stronger. So thank you for recognizing the value of doing that investment in yourself and your organization. So I'm sure we'll talk more. I think if you need to get a hold of me, you can message me on here, and I think I'm pretty easy to find. So if you need to find me. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Lisa. No, I think I've got one more slide.
Yep.
And so, as always, all of us in nonprofits know how important it is to thank and recognize the folks that make things possible. And so we are really thrilled that we've got a longtime supporter and partner of this program, the Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, based in my hometown of Greensboro. And so just want to thank Guilford Nonprofit Consortium for their support over the years. And then I would also like to welcome a new partner and sponsor, the Camber Foundation. And we are really grateful for the new partnership and possibilities that will come with Camber being a part of our capacity building for nonprofits down in the eastern part of the state. So with that, I will turn it back over to Lisa.
Thanks, Ivan. Appreciate it. So good morning and welcome to our 8th Virtual Interactive Nonprofit Management Institute. I'm Lisa Reed. I'm the Chief Learning Officer here at the Institute. Just to give you a little background, the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits' mission is to educate, connect, and advocate for North Carolina nonprofits over all 100 counties. So whether you're an emerging or seasoned nonprofit or nonprofit leader, the center has valuable member resources at your fingertips. I'd like to do a quick intro of who we're joined with today. I have a great program team with us. We have Rebecca Beck, our education manager, whom a lot of you have received emails from. We have Leslie Morales, who is our nonprofit services assistant, who's making sure all things behind the scenes go smoothly. You don't want myself in charge of that, so I thank you, Leslie, very much for that. So that's our team, and we'll be monitoring the chat as we go through today. And if you have questions, please feel free to pop it in the chat, and our team will do our best to get them answered as Dr. Palmer is going through her class today. Next slide, please. Rebecca, if you can go on and give us some housekeeping rules, please.
Yeah, sure thing. So one of the things that we encourage throughout these sessions is for us to move from a safe space to a brave space. And this is part of our equity work. So along that vein, we encourage everyone to participate. We love to see your faces. We understand at times that you'll have to have your cameras turned off, and that's fine too. We respect everyone's inherent humanity, everyone's perspectives. We ask that you seek first to understand, not to be understood, as we go through things. And we also all take responsibility to demonstrate that collective commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's something that you'll see that we have EDI woven throughout this series, and we invite you to share along those lines as well, as you're able and willing, and to bring your whole self to this space. So that's kind of how we operate. The next slide just goes over our equity statement. And you can see that there that we're committed here at the Center to transforming North Carolina into a more equitable state and dismantling racism on the 4 levels on which it operates in society: personal, interpersonal, institutional, and structural. This was adopted back in 2020 by our board. But we've been doing EDI work for a long time with our Walking the Talk initiative. Even before my time here at the center, I've been here almost 5 years. The center has been devoted and committed to that work. So I wanted to ask real quick, just to get a show of hands, how many of you have an equity statement that you've developed in partnership with your board and that you share on your website? Okay, I'm seeing some hands, nice physical hands up, good. Also people using their emoticons as well. Feel free to use those too. Very good. Good, I'm glad to see that. That's great. Excellent. Okay. With that, I will go ahead and pass it over to you, Lisa, to go over the agenda for a bit.
You're right. And before I do that, I forgot to mention earlier, hopefully you've all received our workbook for this series. And if you have not, please let us know in the chat if you have not, and follow along the best you can. And we'll make sure we work on getting you the correct materials to make sure we've gotten the right address and everything like that. So, so for our agenda today, as you can see, it looks short, but it's jam-packed. We'll be going through our capacity building framework, which will consist of our principles of nonprofit management, our management conditions. We will take a capacity assessment and go through some practices that go along with the principles, and Dr. Palmer will do a great job in explaining that. We'll have a session evaluation and a closing. Now, what you do not see on this agenda is what? Break time. No, it isn't there, but we will funnel them in as we go through the day. We'll try to get a feel of the group, because we have so much information. We want to make sure that we have time to get it in. And so we'll time the bathroom breaks, but you will get it. But of course, you can get up. I'm not there to tell you don't get up, so you can get up as you see fit. But pretty much breaks will be managed throughout the morning. So with that, next slide, please. I would like to take a short moment to introduce our facilitator for our next 6 sessions. Dr. Pamela Palmer will be our teacher and facilitator for this whole session. Please, there are varied degrees of experience in our cohort this time around, so please, everyone's value is important. And we will place Dr. Palmer's bio in the chat for you to read. And if we're ready, let's get some intros going, Rebecca.
I see some hands raised.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are a couple of hands raised, yep.
Devin, did you have a question?
No, I think my hand was still raised from the equity statement on the website.
Okay.
Sorry, I apologize.
No, don't worry about it. It's fine. We like to see hands. Okay. Everyone else good? Okay. I see some. I didn't receive the workbooks. We got you.
Yeah, thank you for noting that. I have noted your names, and I'll follow up if you haven't received your workbook. We do include a digital copy of that with your reminder emails that go out for each session. So, well, fortunately for this first session, it's not the biggest deal if you don't have your workbook quite yet, because a lot of the things that we'll be going over, we won't need it as much as other sessions. But thank you for letting me know, and I'll follow up with you. Thanks, Terry. Good job. So we wanted to just kick us off with a little introductions of our participants and getting to know one another. We're going to use the annotate feature of Zoom. And so I'm going to walk you through how to do that. If you haven't done that before, you will hover. There's a couple ways to do it, but we'll go ahead and hover up above under View Options and at the top of your screen in Zoom, and you'll see Annotate is the third one down, I believe. I'm going to click on that and it'll give you a bunch of options. For this exercise, I think it's best if you select one of the stamps. I think it's the fourth one down. It looks like a little check mark. You'll click on that and it'll give you some different options to annotate with. You can take a star or a heart. Hopefully no question marks about where you're based, but we're just asking you to put a stamp on our map here to show us where you're based in the state. And I see we're getting some populating. You guys have done this before. Very good. Nice. This is always
Good little spread. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Looks like as
This-
far as Jackson, Carteret. Oh yeah.
Good little nice spread. Yeah.
Yep.
Halifax, Ren.
Very good.
I can't be. Okay.
Orange County for Carver. That's okay, Rebecca. Oh. We actually, fun fact, we have 4 Rebeccas, including myself, in this cohort, which is pretty
Thank
impressive.
goodness.
That could
'Cause
get
there's-
confusing.
Well, thank goodness, because there's always a Lisa.
There's
several
always Lisa.
Lisas. So I'm glad Rebecca's taking turn. Good.
And gosh, we should have, if we were to go across the globe over to South Korea, we have a participant who's joining us from South Korea. She's based there because her husband is in the military, but she runs an organization. Is it Mothers in Construction?
Yeah, where are you? Let's see you. I would love to put my eyes on you. Let me
Let's
see. She's not on
Tanya
my.
Rivers.
She's
I'm
not on
sorry,
my-
I was still putting stars everywhere, and this is my first time working with the annotate. Yes, Tony Rivers. I'm with the executive director and founder of Mothers in Construction, and I'm currently in South Korea.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
What time is it?
It is 10:45 p.m. It's going to be exciting.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm committed. Thank you.
Thank
Love
you.
it, I love it. Well, good. Well, thank you all for participating in that. It's lovely to see everyone zooming in with us from all over the state and all over the world today, which is really exciting. So thanks for participating in that. I'll go ahead and clear everyone's options here. Let's see. Oop, oop. Oh. Well, where did my clear go? Leslie, can you clear? There she goes. Thank you, Leslie. All right. And we'll move into I think we had one more question.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you all can put also in the chat or feel free to unmute if you'd like to raise your hand, we could have one or two tell about why they've signed up for the Institute. It's important to know a little bit about motivations and what you're hoping to get out of the series.
And how many years you've worked in a nonprofit sector would be helpful.
Oh, yes.
I don't mind unmuting if that's all right.
Yeah.
I am doing this because I am one of the leaders at a independent public charter school in downtown Raleigh. And as a small school, I feel like historically, we've never really approached leadership from the nonprofit perspective. And so I'm really excited to kind of bring that perspective to it. You know, there's this whole debate about like, should schools be run as schools or as businesses? And I don't think it's as crude as that, right? But I think we can learn a lot of lessons here. So I'm very, very excited.
Great. Thanks
Hi,
for sharing, Josh.
Hi, Rebecca. This is Tina with Seza Love Truck. I taught school for 31 years and this is completely new to me. So that's the reason I'm taking it. Education is always a plus, but we are a mobile shower and laundry truck. We also put washer and dryers into high need schools and distribute hygiene products to the homeless and children. But just to gain more information, more knowledge, going from being a leader in the classroom and in the total school environment to this has been a learning curve.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
bet. I bet.
So I do appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Morning. Hi, my name is Glenise Highsmith. I'm for Forsyth County Smart Start. And then I apologize if I cough during this quick moment. I'm struggling to recover from the flu. And the cough, whatever reason, is the last thing to go and it hangs forever. But just to share a little bit, the reason why I signed up, one, it was a recommendation of my supervisor. However, I very much requested it. I wanted to learn more, get more leadership development. I've been in the early childhood arena for over 25 years, working in the federal, in the area of federal management of grants and things like that. But hasn't really been a lot of structured development. So I really wanted something, I may be going backwards to go forward, but I can guarantee you there's so much that I probably have missed over the last 25 years. So I'm really interested to just kind of look at this approach and implement it as I move forward in my career. Yeah, thank you.
That's wonderful.
Mhm.
Hi, my name is Terry Pinckney, and I have two things I want to say. One is I could not find Mecklenburg County on this map. So if anyone can help me, that would be great. I didn't see it, and so I didn't put an annotation. And two, I work with NXT CLT. It is a Charlotte-based small business accelerator. Targeted toward Black and Indigenous and people of color and others with the purpose of equity for all. And so we are in our 4th year. So this is new to me, even though nonprofit is not new to me because my husband is a nonprofit executive director. But I am enjoying this very much. We are excited about what we're doing. We've had a great we've been received well by the community and by corporations, and we're just looking forward to growth. I work in the operations space and help prepare for the program participants to come into our cohorts. And we lead with leadership development, mentoring, and networking, and so many other things we'll talk about as we go forward in this class. I'm very excited about being here and about learning ways that we can improve and grow our business accelerate.
Great. Well, thanks. That's really helpful. It's nice to see people's varied experiences and what they come to the table with, right? And so we're thankful that you all are willing to be a part of this process with us as we move forward. Let's go ahead and keep moving along so we can get everything covered today. Do we want to have, there we go. Let's go ahead and pass it off to you, Dr. Palmer, to kick us off.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you. Can we go to gallery view just real quick? I kind of like to see who I'm working with. And so this helps me out. Thank you all for utilizing the annotation feature. For those of you who had not used that before, maybe team will have to use it again for something else, just so that we could all get some more practice with that. It is good to see you. As Rebecca mentioned, this is our 8th cohort for the Nonprofit Management Institute. And so we are glad that we are able to provide this resource and that the reach can go as far as it does across the state. I am in Guilford County today, working with you.
But I did have just one question that I'd like to pose before we get into the content. Um, Can you share with me a little bit about why you decided to sign up for this institute? And you can unmute yourself or and feel free to use the chat as well. We'll try to read, we'll try to read some of those. There are 54 of us in this space today, so we'll do our best.
I'm
Why did you
Katerina.
decide?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Michelle Miller Cox. I'm the executive director of a preschool, First Presbyterian Day School in Durham, and I've been in this role for 4.5 years. I had my own family childcare for 20 years in Wake County, but moving into this role is a little different. And so I'm governed by a board, and the board is a rotating board. So, you know, every 2 years you have new board members. And I just feel like I haven't really grounded myself in understanding what my role as an executive director looks like. And because there's not a lot of, they didn't do a really good job with keeping up with the responsibilities of the executive director. It's kind of meshed together with other things. So, you know, we're trying to tease out what we should be doing as a nonprofit overall. And so they're working with a consultant as a board, but I had said to them, I think, you know, this would be a good training opportunity for me to learn more about what my role looks like. So I'm excited to be a part of this training.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing, Michelle. Thank you. The question was, why did you decide to sign up for the Institute or participate in the Institute? That was the question. I think I saw that in the chat.
I'm
Hi,
Katerina Gamitter, and I said yes as a result of this being sent out by the Camber Foundation. We were a recipient of grant funds to expand our programming into Eastern North Carolina. I am co-founder and executive director. Our mission is to support women with cancer throughout the state. And we are 5 years old, have grown each year. And my goal is that for this to really give us the infrastructure to expand sustainably and to reach women in all 100 counties. And just really excited that I had the opportunity to say yes to this.
Thank you for sharing. Tonya, were you? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, Tonya Rivers, and again, the executive director of Mothers in Construction. Like most people who may be on here who founded a nonprofit, it starts off with the problem and the passion, and that's really where I started as being a mother in a male-populated field. I have all the passion, but honestly, never really understood what to do. So I'm here because I've realized that there are a lot of resources that the Institute provides, and also I think this is a great opportunity for me to know how to structure my organization. So this opportunity to come to South Korea at first was not an opportunity for me. It actually broke my heart because I really wanted to pour into the organization, but I think it was also a blessing because I have the opportunity to now be global. So I just want to take advantage of this opportunity to kind of get Mothers in Construction off the ground and take advantage. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Team, I do see some responses in the chat. Do we want to maybe just share just 2 or 3 of those? And Tonya, you're getting some shout outs in the chat.
We have Kimberly says, I'm the first executive director of a nonprofit supporting single mothers with aspirations of education to break the cycle of poverty. I wanted to attend the course to get more professional development. Megan says 0 experience and inherited a nonprofit that has not been properly managed in 10 years. We want to make it viable, useful, and purposeful. Great. I like, is it Kenton, if I pronounced that right, said I was voluntold. I like his honesty. A lot of brand new people on here. There's so many, Dr. Palmer.
Terry, I see your hand. Thank you, Lisa. Terry, I see your hand.
Thank you so much. So just to say again, I work with NXT CLT, which is a small business development initiative, and I'm so excited about what we do to shore up and assist and help entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs of color, create a robust pathway to success of their business. We do this when they're in their scaling, ready to grow and scale. So they're already at a certain level. And when I came into this work, I was asked to do it because I really own my own business and I support other businesses and nonprofits in the operations space. So that's really how I got connected when they were in their infant stages, right after they had cohort 1, we're now on cohort 8. And so I realized that there's a lot for me to learn because my role when I first came in has expanded so much as we grow through the different phases as you listed in your workbook. And so I'm here to become more proficient, to be more of help because I love it so much. I love the impact we're having on these entrepreneurs. And I want to be able to be more useful to the board, to the executive director, to our constituents, to our funders. And so I need your help and I need to learn more and to become more confident in doing that.
Thank you so much. Eric, I see your hand and I don't see any others. So Eric will be my last one. Eric?
Dr. Palmer, thanks for calling on me. Yes, I'm the last answer. So I'm the executive director of the Rec Harriman Foundation. We're celebrating 10 years this year. So I've been brought on to take our mission national. So we are in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we treat the Fort Liberty military families. And we've been doing a great job for 9 years, but taking this thing national is a monster. And I have all the ambition in the world and a lot of energy and drive, but I could use a little bit of coaching. I know there's a violent amount of things that I could probably get taught to help improve my chances of taking this thing national. So I have to agree with what Terry said. I think board governance is something that stands out to me. And there's also the strategic planning, to get everything funding, get a reliable source of funding in order to do something that we've never done before. So very excited.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Eric, my son is at Methodist University in Fayetteville. He's a freshman this year.
Tell him to drop into our 50-acre camp. He'd be blown away. That's so cool.
Okay. All right. I don't know if there's anybody else in Fayetteville on here, but you know how we are about our Cubs. We want to make sure that they have folks they can reach out to. So thank you all for sharing. We wanted to just kind of hear a little bit about why you decided to be a part of this, as our president and CEO shared, this series of commitment that you're making to participate in this series of every Tuesday from 9:30 to 12:30. And so we know that that is a significant contribution that you're making to your organization and yourselves being a part of our institute. And so we do believe that you have landed in a very good place being a part of this institute to learn more about how to be an executive director as it relates to the management functions that we're going to cover, and also, how to be more helpful to the nonprofit that you are representing in this institute for this cohort. So we're going to get to know each other pretty good over the next few weeks, as mentioned before, spending the amount of time that we're going to spend. We're going to get to know each other really well. I do want to just point out one thing in particular, or several things. This institute is designed to be participatory and hands-on. And so many of us have participated in webinars, right, where we're able to listen in and maybe kind of keep a cadence of being able to keep up that way. This institute is designed to be a workshop type of experience. And so you will be engaging in hands-on participatory work. You will be going into breakout sessions or breakout rooms. And it's quite difficult, I would say, and the team can chime in. It's a little challenging to multitask with this institute because we build upon from the beginning of the agenda in each session, we're building upon our activities and our work, and we're building upon each topic, each management function as we work through the institute. So I'll go ahead and tell you in advance. Sometimes it could be a little frustrating because we're moving along. And if you have to step away, by all means do so. But just know that we're kind of moving along, and it may take you a minute to kind of get caught back up. But we always like to just kind of share that in advance. Team, I don't think I left anything out related to that. But so we always just try to let everybody know that. What we've tried to do in the design of the Institute is for it to be practical application and for it to be skill building. And so because of that, the design is quite different than what you might have experienced being in an actual webinar. And so I just want to kind of point that out in advance. As Lisa mentioned, we've got quite a bit to do, so we're gonna keep it moving. We do have breaks incorporated in the process, and so we promise we'll let you have some breaks. If you could go to slide 9 and then after slide 9, we'll go back to 12. So we shared the agenda with you at the beginning, but I wanted to go back to this just to point out what we're going to be working on today. So we are going to spend our time today getting grounded in our capacity building framework. Several of you mentioned wanting to hone your skills and to become more fluent as it relates to what executive directors do or presidents and CEOs do as it relates to management. And that's what this institute is all about. We focus on 6 management functions, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But our capacity building framework is comprised of principles. It's comprised of a way of framing, moving through management or evolving as it relates to the condition of management of your nonprofit. So we're going to talk about that frame. We are also going to do 2 types of capacity assessments related to those management functions. And so that is important to keep in mind. And we're also going to do, I would say, a deep dive into our practices. The North Carolina Center for Nonprofits, we have 12 principles that align with 12 management functions of nonprofit organizations. There are more management functions that could be added. But our framework focuses on 12. I don't know, team, if there's I thought I saw a question pop up in the chat. I'm not sure. See comments, but I don't want to miss a question if there was one.
Yeah, there was some quick discussion asking whether or not this was designed specifically for executive directors. We designed this program or series for nonprofit leaders, and we think of our board leadership also as a nonprofit, part of that nonprofit leadership team when it works really well. And so we have quite a few board leaders that join these sessions to understand a little bit more about the inner workings of nonprofits, the pressures that are on EDs as well as board members, and how they can work better together. So thanks for that question. That's a good one.
Thank you, Rebecca. And yes, the Institute is designed for leaders and individuals that are a part of nonprofit organizations, as Rebecca said, that want to hone their management skills. And so it could be an executive director. I think Rebecca just stated that it could be a board member or a board chair. It could be a volunteer. It could be a person who's interested in pursuing a career working in the nonprofit sector. So the reason for participating in the Institute can vary obviously from person to person, but the content is relevant regardless of what the auspice is in terms of why people are participating and why they sign up for this. So if we could go to slide 12 now. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to just share with you a little bit more detail about our capacity building framework for nonprofit management. We have a principles and practices guide that includes all of the principles and the practices. There are 12 principles that we align with in terms of our education and training related to nonprofit management. Along with those 12 principles are 216 practices. 216 practices. And in this institute, we're going to be focusing on 6 of the 12 principles, i.e. management functions of a nonprofit. And then we're going to learn about how to identify where our nonprofit is in terms of its current state or its current condition. And so we're going to learn about that. And then we're going to utilize what we know about practices and principles and the management condition. And we're going to assess our capacity. So each of you will assess the capacity of your nonprofit organization. And we're going to leave this session focusing on 6 of those of the 12 management functions. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we're going to share a link with you to our principles and practices guide. This is what you're looking at here is a pullout from the guide. There's a page that's titled How to Use the Guide. And then what we're showing you here is an example of one of the principles. In this example, it's financial management. And then there's the practice that goes along with it. Rebecca, did you want to share how they can access this even beyond the Institute?
Sure. Real quick, members can download a PDF for free. So anyone from your organization can create a login user account on our website and download this. We also have legal compliance checklist, which is a great resource to have as a nonprofit. Anyone from your organization can be affiliated with your member org and download for free. We do also have copies of the principles and practices in print that you can order. You can also get member discount on those, bulk orders, that sort of thing. So if you ever want to order some for any purpose, you can let us know. We're happy to help you out with that.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So again, our principles and practices guide is a very helpful quick reference to some primary management functions of nonprofit organizations. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about those. In your booklet, we're going to be utilizing page 8, and team, make sure that I've got my pages right in terms of where we are in the book. in the booklet. So the 12 principles worksheet is the item that you're going to be working with for this part of our work. And I want to pose a question, and we can go back to gallery now. I want to pose a question, and we're going to have you use another electronic tool. So Rebecca, you'll have to kind of that's kind of the tee up to get ready to talk to you about how to use the tool. So I want you to think about what you would consider the top 3 most important functions that we need to be mindful of when managing a nonprofit. So I'm gonna repeat that. Just kind of think about that and just jot it down. So 3, what you would consider to be 3 most important functions in which nonprofits manage the organization. So nonprofit management is where our focus is in this institute. And so what would you say would be the 3 most important functions that one would need to manage in a nonprofit? So jot those down, and I'm gonna let Rebecca share with you how we want to capture what you wrote down.
Sure. So I'm putting this link in the chat for our Mentimeter, and I'm going to share my screen here in a moment. And what it'll do is it'll populate in a word cloud those 3 management functions that you sort of put in your top 3. So we'll go ahead and click on that link. It should prompt you to enter those responses in. I think we are limited to 50. So with everyone here today, hopefully everyone will be able to get their responses in, but I'll share my screen and we'll start to see them populate on the screen for us. All right, here we go. They're coming in. Strategic planning is really holding that #1 position there. Interesting.
It must be on everybody's mind. Financial management, well, we're gonna wait and see.
And give it a few more seconds for folks.
We've got 73 responses in there, so we've got quite a few. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So on your worksheet, we're going to begin to kind of identify what we came up with as a group here. And Rebecca, it looks like strategic planning is the numero uno here.
For sure. I think followed closely by fundraising. And then advocacy and human resources. Financial management is probably along that same.
Okay. It keeps dancing.
I know it does. That's okay.
It is.
I see advocacy as a top one. And just so you know, the way that the Mentimeter does is the more responses you get for a certain one, that'll appear bigger. So that's why we're calling those out right now. I also see leadership, diversity, funding.
And I see program management down there.
Yep.
And I see communication. And I see sustainability, which aligns with, well, not just finances, but I see that. funding, which may be fundraising or related to that, and money.
Mhm.
So it looks like we've got, and the rest of them, I see the leadership too. The rest of them are kind of competing, maybe kind of tying up with that. So I've got strategic planning, fundraising, advocacy, human resources, financial management, diversity, program management, and leadership. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8.
You
And
got
then I can
communication,
see where, go ahead.
communication, is that on your list?
Oh, yes, communication. That would be my number 9. You think that's kind of, we kind of have about 9 that bubbled up or surfaced up to the top.
Mhm.
So in your workbook, you can leave this up for just a few more minutes. In your workbook, if you would go to page 9, in your workbook, page 9, I'll give you the title. Principles and Practices Definitions is the title of the handout that we're referencing. And you'll hear me refer to what's in your workbook as a worksheet or a handout or something like that. And I'll give the title of the sheet as well. So let's take a look and let's do a little bit of comparing what we came up with as a group and what is on the on the principles and practices definitions sheet. So we did the first one for our institute. The first principle is advocacy and civic engagement. And that looks like it was our number 3 in our lineup. And team, correct me if I'm wrong as I'm going through and doing the comparisons. And then our second principle is board governance. And I don't see that on our list as the top 9.
Do head over here in brown. It says
Oh,
board,
there it
and it's
is. Okay.
about the same size as some of these other ones like diversity.
Okay.
and DEI.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
All
it
right.
made it to our top
So
12.
maybe I'm going to put that as my number 10.
Okay.
Because I didn't, and because it looks like it might be a little bigger than the communications and program management. And then number 3 for us is for our framework is equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it looks like diversity made it for number 6 for us, if I just kind of go by how I have it listed. And then number 5 is fundraising. That made our what? Number 2? Number 2? And human resources is number 6
That in there.
in our guide. And it's about number 4 is kind of where I've listed it. Number 7 is information and technology. Do you, I don't see that listed here, but that is our number 7. And then number 8 is legal compliance and transparency. For our
I see
guide.
structure, transparency there. Kind of
Okay.
small, but it's there.
All right. And then number 9 is partnerships and collaboration. Partnerships and collaboration. And number 10 is for our framework is program design, management, and evaluation. And it looks like that made number 7 on our list. I hope I didn't skip number 4, which was financial management on our list, on the framework list. And it's number 5 up here in our group. Number 11 for our framework is strategic communication. Looks like that made number 9 or 10. for the group. And then number 12 on our list made number 1 on our cohorts list. So strategic planning is number 12. So one of the things we want to point out here is, and restate, is that in our framework, there are 12 principles. And these principles that you see listed on page 9 are our 12 principles. And we've provided kind of the primary practice for each of the principles on this handout. In our institute, we are going to be focusing on 6 of these. We're going to be focusing on 6 of these. Before we jump into that, we are going to learn about the 3 management conditions. And we can go back to, thank you. We can go back to gallery now. We're going to learn about 3 management conditions, but we probably need to take a break. So we're going to do that. Rebecca, how much time do we have for our break?
Let's take about 5 minutes, give people a good stretch break, bio break, grab some coffee, water, a snack, and we'll come back here just before 10:30. So let's plan to come back at 10:29.
Okay, thank you. All right, enjoy your break.
Welcome back. Hope that was a nice long enough break for y'all to get the blood flowing again. I did see Josh was on a walking pad, I believe. So he's been, I wonder, we should have him track how many steps he can get in these 3 hours. One of the questions I noted here from Eric are the principles in the framework listed in priority order? Do you want to speak to that, Dr. Palmer, real quick, as we pull back together?
Yeah, Dr.
No,
Palmer.
they're listed in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a rhyme or reason to it, and I'm sure depending on who the nonprofit is and where they're at maturity wise, one might be higher than the other, but I wanted to see if there was a hierarchy to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're right. Where the organization is in its life cycle definitely impacts where you might find yourselves building capacity for your nonprofit. Yes, I would agree. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. But we put them in alphabetical order. To some degree for that very reason, because it's, depending upon kind of where the organization is in the life cycle, yes, but there are also other factors that contribute to where the priorities might be. And those priorities should be determined by the leadership of your nonprofit or the individuals who make the decisions about where to invest, because capacity building is an investment. So I would add that to it as well. But as we cover these next couple of parts of the framework, hopefully some of that will even become a little bit more clear as to how you can approach building capacity as it relates to prioritizing.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Well, let's get right back into our work. So I want to just kind of share with you some explanations and definitions related to our framework and the way in which we study, analyze, determine where a nonprofit might be in its growth and development. And so if you go to page 10 with me, I want to just kind of talk through and teach through our principles and practices approach and framework overall. And so when you're looking at page 10, you're going to see basically a 1-row, 3-column table. And it highlights what we consider to be the current a current condition of a nonprofit's management capacity. And so the way we utilize this is that we look at the current condition of a nonprofit being in the build stage or frame or condition, being the current condition being thrive or the current condition being sustain. So again, and just thinking about the current condition of a nonprofit, we framed it around build, thrive, and sustain. The current condition is what we consider to be the present state of a nonprofit's ability to manage the growth and development it's experiencing. And that growth and development could be intentional, but it could also be unintentional. It could be as a direct result of what you have planned, but it could also be that we are looking at our management condition and trying to understand it as a result of something happening that we didn't anticipate as it relates to the infrastructure of the nonprofit and how it's being managed. So we look at this also in the context of that it's inevitable that there are going to be experiences that we have that may change and transform our nonprofits over time. We also, as I mentioned before, the current condition helps us to think about what practices we might want to utilize to help us move to another state as it relates to build, thrive, and sustain. And what we also want to share with you is that together these concepts help us understand our nonprofit's management capacity to achieve the mission and vision of the organization. And so in just breaking that down, if you look at build, the way in which we describe build in the current condition of a nonprofit is that our nonprofit is meeting its legal requirements. It operates with the fundamental components of governance and nonprofit management. Also, as it relates to thrive, the nonprofit is demonstrating a working knowledge of governance, of oversight, and that's related to the board of directors. And nonprofit management is evidence in how we go about doing the day-to-day operations of our nonprofit in terms of our skill set and being skilled, but also the engagement of the board of directors and the staff. So skill building, we see it as happening with the staff, we see it as happening with the board as it relates to how to manage a nonprofit. And that is evident for us, it is evident as it relates to thrive. So that's how we frame that. Sustain is our third way of assessing where we are in terms of our capacity as a nonprofit in its current condition. For this particular area of current condition, we have stated that the nonprofit is capable of sustainability. So we see evidence that the nonprofit is moving towards being sustainable. It is being recognized as a community asset. There's some stability in the revenue that's coming into the organization. There is some degree of reserves, operating reserves. We see programs and or services that are being delivered, and those programs and services have a really good track record. They're being evaluated. Governance is occurring the way that it should as it relates to our board. And we have partnerships and collaboration with our peers in a community and also with our constituents. So in terms of sustainability or being able to identify our nonprofit as being sustainable, in general, this is what we would be looking for. So if you think about it right now, if you're looking at these three, my question to you is, where would you say your nonprofit is? Are you, as a whole, are you at Build? Are you at Thrive or Sustain? If you would just put that in the chat for me. There was a question about there's a separate program for ED. Can that person share with me a little bit more what you? There was a comment in the chat. Okay. I was just trying not to miss it because the lottery is going off with all the responses going, but that one is probably pushed down. So there's a question about offering this program for EDs. This program is for executive directors. This program is for executive directors. Does that help? Okay, great.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So I was looking at the Thrive and Sustain, and I feel like we're doing good in both Thrive and Sustain, but it's like some parts of Thrive are missing and some parts of Sustain is missing.
Mhm. And that's a common way of interpreting what it is that you see there. We're going to look at each of the 12 principles in this next part that we do. And I think that might bring a little bit more clarity to you. Now here is the other side of thinking about I don't know whose voice that was, but here's another way of thinking about that. This is a self-assessment, right? This is a self-assessment. And so what we encourage you to do is to identify the current condition that you are functioning in the most. So while you may have elements of both in play, if you had to kind of just give a grounded kind of assessment, where would you say that you are? And on any given day, this can change. This can change on any given day. So where would you say that you are more so? Your organization. I don't know whose voice that was. I heard.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Michelle. Sorry.
Sorry, Michelle. I was trying to, but I didn't check who the voice was.
Okay, so I'm looking at both Thrive and Sustain, and I guess we would fall under Sustain.
Okay.
My only question is when it says skilled and engaged board of directors, I feel like our board of directors is learning about the function of the nonprofit organization. So that's where I kind of get stuck.
Okay. I would lean more towards what do we see more of? What would we see more of happening in your organization to kind of give a matter of fact kind of assessment? And here's another way to think about this. Oftentimes when we're working with nonprofit organizations to assess capacity, we utilize a 360-degree type of an approach so that it's not just one person looking at where you are, but you might get some feedback from your staff, you might get some feedback from your board, and that might help you to sure up where you might identify as what you might identify as being your current condition.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So principles and practices, approach and framework. Current condition of managing of the capacity of a nonprofit as it relates to management. Are there any more questions about Build, Thrive, Sustain, the approach or the framework that we've shared with you? Are there any Okay, what we want to do next is we are going to put you in breakout rooms. And when you go into your breakout room, what we want you to discuss is, and here's the question. What is the usefulness of these frames? What would you consider to be the usefulness of this approach and this framework that we've shared with you to identify the current management condition of your nonprofit organization? So I'm going to restate that. What is the usefulness of your opinion? What do you think the usefulness of using this approach and framework to assess the management condition of a nonprofit and your nonprofit in particular? And so, Rebecca, I'm going to pass it over to you. And Rebecca is going to put our whole group into a breakout room. And we will ask for some report outs. We probably won't ask every group to report out, but we will ask for some. So if you're so inclined, when we come back, please volunteer to do that. Rebecca, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Sure. So we established rooms, about 7 rooms total. And we will put what you're supposed to be doing will go into a chat that you'll see pop up in your room that you're in, so you can refer to that. And also I will go ahead and put in there, we're going to do this for 10 minutes, right?
Yes.
So you'll
Yes.
have a countdown that'll come through, and then you'll get a warning when you're about a minute out, and then we'll come back to main room. Let me go ahead and do that. And I'm going to open up the rooms, and feel free to go into those and meet folks and get going. All right.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
We have about a few more seconds for people to close out.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
We'll come back in
All right.
20 seconds or so, and they'll all be closed.
Okay. Welcome back. Josh, how many steps are you on? How far have you gone since 9:30?
I mean, we're approaching about 6,000 since we started.
Well, how many miles is that?
Oh, don't ask me that. I don't know that, but I've actually been doing this new thing where I try to get 15,000 a day. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it's going well, but you have to build in stuff like this. Or I do a lot of meetings via phone call so that I could just walk around the block, just endless number of times. So yeah.
I'm a little jealous. Just a tad bit jealous. I need to put some steps in. I really do.
Well, and maybe this
Welcome
looks fancy, but it's just a folding cocktail table with like a very cheap little walking pad. So, don't have too much envy over here. This is all DIY.
Every little bit helps. So hang in there. Keep it up. Keep it up. Welcome back, everybody. We want to just kind of hear from you. Rebecca, how many groups did we have?
7.
7. Okay. So if we could hear from maybe 3, and then we're going to move on into our next part of our work today. The question was, what would you consider the usefulness of utilizing this approach, this framework, thinking about and considering the management condition of your nonprofit? Give us an idea of what you all kind of talked about. And any person can unmute yourself or raise your hand or jump right in. Tell us who you are and where you're from though. That way we can start to get to know, how many is it of us? 54 of us. So we can try to get to know each other a little better. Nancy, I see your hand. Go right ahead.
I don't know if you're going in group order or not, but I'm happy to be the spokesperson for Group 7.
Go right ahead.
If my group mates are in agreement of that. First thing I wanted to say, that it's really cool being in a group chat where everybody like comes in and has something really substantive to contribute. I really see that this is truly a group of leaders that we're all working with here together. It's just lovely. Kudos to Group 7 here. Okay, so what's useful in this framework? We had an agreement on a lot of things, helping to set priorities and expectations, using goals, as helping it or as a perspective for communicating with our boards, providing stepping stones. And one thing that Ivan brought up was that an organization may have different pieces of their organization at different points. So one part of the organization might be in thrive and another one in sustain. So, we don't have to feel like we're stuck in any one block. And just one last point, I just wanted to bring out that Floor brought up that using this to extend grace to oneself and one's organization, that, keeping our expectations, giving yourself kudos for being where you are. And that's just a really lovely point too. So thanks, Floor, for adding that as well.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for sharing and representing Group 7. Thank you. Tina, I think you were next.
Yes, I was in Group 5 and I told them I'd just go on and jump in, so I hope they don't mind. But basically, we came into agreement that you don't know where you're going unless you know where you're currently at, and I just told them it was like when I was writing IEPs as a special ed teacher, we had to have baselines, okay? And then we could measure growth. And then at the end of the year, did we meet those goals? And we need to work on these goals a little bit more. So that's basically it. You got to know where you're at so you can know where you're going, and then know if you've reached the goals, perform assessments, and if you need to revisit some things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. I did see a couple of items in the chat team, and then is it Katarina?
Yes, Katarina.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Go right ahead, Katarina.
In our group and speaking about the usefulness, we talked about how it is useful in creating a realistic strategic plan and to have all people on board and to help with some of the nonprofit language in approaching it as well for grant writing and training, and just in working with the board and making sure that our boards, from as an executive director standpoint, that the boards are, someone had said, doing their lift. And it seemed that most people were in agreement that we needed to just kind of stop, reevaluate in order to get to that sustained position and to stay there. We circle in and out, but to stay there is sort of what we're really trying to do. And someone had said the analogy of, slowing down to speed up. And I think that resonated, to just make sure that everything is in alignment to be able to launch further.
Thank you, Katarina, for sharing on behalf of your group. Team, were there a couple comments in the chat? I thought I saw Group 1 in the chat.
Nadia gave a quick shout out to the analogy that Tina offered up. And then Eric mentioned that some of the similar things that we're hearing, but from Group 1, it helps to prioritize your efforts, a framework to assess where you're at, which we've heard, and then use to help drive the board, which we've also heard as well. So it's good.
Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. And Nancy, if I could go back to a point that you made about your colleagues in your breakout. Thank you all for going into your breakout rooms and doing the work. I really appreciate that. And Nancy, thank you for lifting up that attribute of your group. Throughout the course of the Institute, we're going to utilize breakout rooms. And so we don't police those. And we don't go in and necessarily hang out in those breakout spaces with you. And so we just encourage you to continue to do what Nancy said. I'll just borrow what she said. So we just rely on you to kind of lead once you get in those spaces and to engage in based on the instructions that we give. So thank you all for reporting out, and thank you for those of you who utilize the chat. We'll appreciate that engagement and that feedback. Before I move into another part of our work today, are there any just kind of general comments that anyone would like to make about the framework? And I'm still referencing page 10 at this point. Are there any other comments or thoughts that you have as we're kind of moving from this, which we're going to utilize this into the next part of our work?
Dr. Palmer, I've seen this model before, and you had mentioned it before about the life cycle of a nonprofit and where they sit at year wise. Like there's some trends. I've seen it, and have you seen it? Is that something that's you've heard it referenced before, like stabilization and sustain is called also stabilization, and it could be assessed as like 5 to 7 years. And then 10 years plus is the maturity phase. Like if you look at a bell curve, how nonprofits are in startup. So there's a couple different ways of listing or naming where you're at on that bell curve. And once you hit 10 years, then it's like, okay, now you're on the path, but the downslope of the bell curve, but there's some critical things that need to happen at each of those phases to launch into the next one.
So my research over the years is that there's probably about a half a dozen capacity assessment tools that exist. Most of the capacity assessment tools, if not all, borrow from the McKinsey Capacity Assessment Tool. It's called the OCAT, Organizational Capacity Assessment Tool. My recollection is that, and the source that you're referencing may be something fairly new, doesn't necessarily give the results and findings, doesn't necessarily align with utilizing a bell curve per se, because one of the things that we know for sure, and it's not just nonprofit organizations, it's any entity, it's a business, it's government, any entity where we've got people coming together to work together to try to accomplish some common goals or common effort, we know that there are multiple causes for any action or reaction that we have. And I've not necessarily seen it crafted like a recipe. Like there's this recipe that gets us from this to this to this, because I think it was Tina that just said, we benchmark where we are, and most of us are at very different places. We benchmark where we are, then we determine the intervention, i.e. capacity building method that we're going to use in order to move us to wherever it is that we want to land. So I've not seen it, again, utilizing your example in alignment with a bell curve per se. But there are, and I can get to us and I can share it with the team. There are about a half a dozen capacity assessment tools that exist. And they've all borrowed from the OCAT. The OCAT was developed by McKinsey and Company, Venture Philanthropy Partners. It comes in, I want to say like 30 or more languages. I utilized it. I was introduced to it probably about 20 years ago, and have just utilize that as a go-to. There are about 70 items in that tool, and there are about 10 categories of capacity in that tool. But so you might want to take a look at that.
I definitely,
Um,
yeah.
that might help you. But the team and I we're chatting about this when you all were in the breakout rooms. It's very challenging, my experience, and I've been at this about 30 years, to really land on a recipe, like if you do these 10 things exactly like this,
Yeah.
you're going to arrive at sustain.
I'm always looking for the rule book. I'm always looking for the playbook, and I know the truth of it. There's never one. You got to.
I haven't come across that quite yet. But we do know that there are some variables and some elements in terms of how a nonprofit is functioning, that if they're demonstrating certain things, it leads to some milestones in terms of helping it to have some longevity. So that's how that would be the way in which I would think about that. And I do want the team to, can you all put in the chat the link for the 5 life stages of a nonprofit? There's a handful of resources about life cycles of a nonprofit. This one is my preference. So if you go there, there's I don't think the book might cost about $25, maybe, if that. It's a paperback type of resource, but it outlines the 5 life stages of a nonprofit. And then there is a book by Michael Moore. It's called Nonprofit Management. And it aligns with these principles that we're talking about as so those are 2 resources that I think if you wanted to have something on your shelf, those would, especially the one about nonprofit management, that would be one. And believe it or not, some of you may have come across, there's a Nonprofit for Dummies book out there. I've seen iterations of that. I'm a geek when it comes to this stuff, or a nerd, some might say, but there are those resources that are out there too. And what you will find is that those resources align with these principles. They might have a word or two that's a little different, but for the most part, it is the same. So you'll see that.
I just wanted to interject and say I just got the Nonprofit for Dummies book. Love it. It is great. So I do recommend it, and it's relatively cheap, but it's such an easy read because it's for dummies, I guess. But I read it a little bit every night, and it's a good book. So definitely recommend that one.
And Bethany, I have it too. I have it on my shelf too.
Yep. It's great.
Yeah. It is. It's a quick reference, it is an easy read. All right, we're gonna go into another part of our work. Are we having fun yet? Give me a reaction. Where are we? Use your reaction button. Give me a sense of kind of where we are. We're halfway there, a little over halfway there. We're gonna be done here in a minute. Thank you for the heart and the celebration and thumbs up. Thank you. We're gonna keep it moving, and we're gonna do a little, thank you. I appreciate that. So if you, we wanna go now to, we're looking at pages 11 through 14 in your workbook. And we're gonna actually use the worksheet on page 10. So let's see. Make sure I got everything I need to have here. So we're going to do a little bit more of assessing capacity. So we're looking at pages 11 through 14, and we're going to use the worksheet on page 15. Everybody with me? Great. I see some head nods. Awesome. So Pages 11 through 14 has each of the principles. We have the description of our principles for each one. And again, these are in alphabetical order. And then there is a unique description of each management condition for each principle. Now, that was a mouthful, so let me say it again. Pages 11 through 14, you have each of the management principles, 1 through 12. There's a description of each one. And what I really like about this is that there is a unique description for each of the management conditions. Everybody with me? And so what we're going to do is we're going to assess capacity. So we did level 1. Now we're going to do level 2, and there is a level 3. So we did level 1. Now we're going to do kind of level 2. And so on your worksheet on page 15, you are going to indicate where your nonprofit is currently in terms of its current management condition for each of the principles. And so here's what we're trying to accomplish with this work that we're getting ready to do. We want to do a deeper dive into each of the principles, and we want to do a deeper dive in understanding, build, thrive, and sustain for each of those principles. If you're like me, you may have done all kinds of little self-assessments, where you well, we don't probably utilize hard copy magazines. We probably don't read those like we used to, but some of us may in our lifetime. I remember the 17 magazine, and you would get that magazine and they would have these little assessments. Are you a violin? Are you a saxophone? Are you, and you complete it and it gives you, you tally it up and then you kind of learn who you are or what you might be in alignment with. Well, for this particular, what I like about this is that it's different than that, right? For each of the principles, you have a unique way of assessing, build, thrive, and sustain. So build, thrive, and sustain is not the same for every principle in terms of your assessment. It's unique and different, which is what I really like about this. And so, for example, principle number 1, we're going to be determining whether or not our current management condition is build, thrive, or sustain. Advocacy and civic engagement is principle number 1. We are at build if we are raising public awareness about the mission through information sharing and education. We're at a thrive if we are active in policy discussions while raising public awareness about the mission through information sharing, research, and education while fostering civic engagement. Notice how we're doing a little bit more as we move from build, thrive, and sustain. And then for sustain, for advocacy and civic engagement, we are initiating and participating in ongoing communication and civic engagement. We're trying to influence public policy, and we're trying to influence that public policy related to the mission, and we're doing that through information sharing and education. So on page 15, for the very first principle, you would mark which one your nonprofit is currently demonstrating. Everybody with me? I'm looking to make sure everybody's with me. I'm looking for head nods. Okay. All right. I see thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. I saw that thumbs up. Thank you, Sarah. I saw that thumbs up. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, we all together. So we want you to work through the remaining 11. So you have 12 here total. We want you to work through the remaining 11. So I'm just gonna go quiet for just a few minutes. And we are going to give you time to complete the assessment. You're using pages 11 through 14. There is a way to determine or identify, build, thrive, and sustain for each of the 12 principles. If you have a question, feel free to unmute. We're going to pay attention to the chat as well. So if you have a question or if there's something you're not clear about, and we're going to be using these results. So in the next part of what we do. And keep in mind, you are noting what you demonstrate most often. So what are you demonstrating most often is how you gauge which you are going to select for each principle. Give me an idea of where we are. Are we at least at number 7? Okay, number 9, Tina says she's at number 9. All right, Kim is, all right, we've got some that have already worked through to 12. Is it safe to say, maybe 2 more minutes? It's 11:23, say 11:25, or is that good? Okay, great.
Yeah, let's plan to do that. And then I think we're gonna take a break after this, correct? Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
So if you have wrapped up, you can go ahead and take your break now. We'll come back here at 11:30. That'll be our goal, is to gather back here at 11:30 and continue on. Dr. Palmer, there was a question about the book that you mentioned and the author. Was it Nonprofit Management
Yes, by
by
Michael Moore.
Michael Moore?
I'm gonna double check. I'm gonna grab
Okay.
it. It's right here.
Okay, yeah, if you'll let me know, I can share the link for it. Thanks, everyone. Oh, so maybe Michael Worth. I think that's what it is. Let me see.
Oops, sorry. It was Michael Worth.
Okay, yep.
Well, this is I have the 6th edition. There may be another. You probably can't see that. There. It may be another one, but it's Michael Worth. Michael Worth. And it's what I really like about it, it's actually a textbook. So it's got case studies, it has articles that you can reference about each of these management functions. It's when I was a college professor in nonprofit management, this was the author that I used, and I kind of stand by his book.
Thank you.
Huh. Well, I don't know. What I'm drinking out of might be 2 cups, but it's a cup that I'm drinking from. So we're getting some feedback too. Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Some feedback on the book, on the sources. I see it in the chat. That folks are able to locate. Yeah. Yeah. There are a few books that I continue to kind of keep on my shelf as it is. Much of what we read and review now is electronic. So actually having physical books is might be a novelty for some, but I still print everything off and everything. So I'm still a little old school when it comes to that. All right. It is 11:30. Let's get started. So where we left off was you did what we're considering kind of level 1 of assessing capacity. And we had you to spend time with these principals, get acquainted with the management conditions related to each in alignment with Build, Thrive, and Sustain. And so the goal there was for us all to begin to know what these are and to have a framework for thinking about growing and enhancing our capacity. So that's the intent there. We're going to go to the next level, and we're going to add assessing practices in alignment with the 6 principles that we're going to be covering, or the 6 management functions that we're going to cover and learn more about in the Management Institute. But just out of curiosity, I saw a little bit of this in the chat before we went to break. How many of you had more builds than you had Thrive or Sustain? So when you went down your list, I think it was Nancy that I saw in the chat that you're kind of starting at the at the very, very beginning. And we are where we are, right? So we're all about trying to grow and develop from where we are. And so Rebecca, I'm going to let you take over from here.
Yep. So you'll see we have a quick pull up to help us get a sense of where we are with our current conditions. So it asks you what range of builds you have, thrives you have, sustains you have. And once we get responses in, I'll share the results. Looks like we're about approaching 60% participated.
Okay.
Give it a few more seconds. Folks to count them up and give us your. Okay. We're up to 87%.
Okay, everybody's moving right along there.
Yeah.
And this is a exercise that you can do with your board, just to see kind of where their thoughts are and their perception of where the organization is in terms of what it is currently demonstrating. And you can also do it with your staff and have some conversation around what folks are including, or any stakeholder group that you that contribute significantly to your organization, and you want to get their feedback. All right, Rebecca, you go right ahead.
No worries. Looks like we've got close to 40% that had 1 to 3 builds. And then following after that, 34% with 4 to 6. I'm just kind of showcasing the top ranked ones. So then thrives, 45%, 4 to 6 of those, 34% at 1 to 3. And then sustains, we had 56% at 1 to 3 of those. And then following close behind, we had about 20% for 4 to 6 or 7 to 9. Interesting.
And there are all sorts of ways that we can use these results, right, to kind of help to inform what do we want to work on as it relates to enhancing our capacity. So again, this is something you can do with staff, and it's definitely something you can do with a board. Now, if you do this exercise or facilitate this exercise with your board, keep in mind they may not be as knowledgeable about some aspects of what the organization does, and vice versa. So you want to kind of just, kind of take that into consideration. But what this can do is it can also help them understand how the work occurs on a day-to-day basis as it relates to these management functions as well. So it's a capacity building opportunity for in a variety of ways. Thank you, Rebecca, for that. So we're going to go into the next level of work. We're going to go a little deeper. So a deeper dive as it relates to the management functions, and also as it relates to enhancing capacity and assessing capacity. Team, can we go to slide 18? So I want to point out that these are the areas of management that we are going to focus on in this institute. There are 12. However, we're going to focus on 6. And we're going to focus on board governance. We're going to focus on financial management, fundraising, human resources, program design, management and evaluation, and strategic planning. So these are the management functions that we're going to focus on. For board governance, there are 26 practices. So for each of the management functions, there's a set of practices that we highlight in our guide and in our framework. under Build, Thrive, Sustain. And board governance has 26 practices. Financial management has 21 practices. Fundraising has 20 practices. Human resources has 23. Program design, management, and evaluation has 16, and strategic planning has 19. And so we put the page number in terms of where they're located in the guide. But if you turn to your workbook and you look at pages 16 through, where am I? 16 through,
29.
thank you, 16 through 29, you're gonna see each of the principles with the accompanying practices as it relates to Build, Thrive, and Sustain. And so what we want to do now is we're going to assess capacity as it relates to these, to the 6 management functions. Next slide, please. And so here is how, this is another image of what it looks like to have those practices align with each of the management conditions. And so again, we're going to focus on board governance, financial management, fundraising, human resources, program design, management, and evaluation, and strategic planning. Now, there are, of course, like I said, we have 12 and we're focusing on 6. And here's just an example of what those practices look like under each area for fundraising. We just use this one as an example to kind of lift it up. So you can kind of see this as it relates to the practices that go with each one. The way we've set this up is we've set this up in SurveyMonkey for you. And so we're going to send you a link. And Rebecca, I'm going to let you take it from here and we can go to the next slide.
So we have a SurveyMonkey link for you. It just asks you to select what you'd like to work on in the next year based on all the practices for these 6 principles. So you certainly could say, I'm not working on any of these, they don't apply. We're focused on, board governance, but we're not really looking at strategic planning right now. So the SurveyMonkey will allow you to skip that section if you don't have anything to check. But for each of those 6 principles, it'll take you through each of the Build, Thrive, and Sustain practices, and you can determine which ones you would like to work on in the next year. And that's key. The phrasing of that is intentional, because we know that there's lots of things we'd like to do, right? But we're asking you to prioritize which of those practices you'd like to work on in the next year. And then what we'll do is we will send you your results by email. It'll just be a compilation of the things that you checked off, what practices, and then we compile a summary that we'll share at the next session, and it'll highlight similar to how we have compared in the past, that we've looked at what are the kind of top priorities that the group has, and that will help design how the rest of the sessions go. So if there are certain practices that for board governance that you all have selected as high priority you'd like to work on, those are going to be the ones we want to make sure we cover in our time together, because we could certainly talk for months and months about all these things, but we really want it to be tailored to some of the majority of you and what you're hoping to work on. Any questions about the survey? We're going to do it all together here as a group. We have some music we're going to play in the background, so feel free, if that's distracting to you, feel free to just take your volume down or mute us if you'd like. We'll let you do that this one time. You can mute us. But keep an eye on your screen just in case we start talking at you and getting ready for our closing. But the goal here is that you all take the time to do this now. We've designed this series to allow you to get all the work that you need to get done within these 3 hours, because it's a lot of time to devote to this. And we acknowledge that. We don't want you to have things that are lingering or that you have to do outside of these sessions. Other than maybe commenting on our Facebook page for group page for this, if you so choose to do that, but we want it to be contained in here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this link here in the chat, and hopefully this works. You can click on that. It'll take you to the SurveyMonkey link.
And you can use your workbook also to kind of follow along. We put all 12 in your workbook, but you're focusing on 6 of those. So, but you can kind of toggle back and forth, I guess, from your workbook to that. The link just arrived in the chat.
That's there.
And we want to make sure everyone can access it. We can go back to gallery view now. And as Rebecca said, we are right here with you. But we do want to complete this before the next class, before we meet next week, because we utilize the results to kind of guide where the emphasis is as it relates to each topic, so that you're getting out of this what is helpful. So we're gonna take some time to do this, but first, Rebecca, I want to make sure everyone is able to get into the survey. Tina is giving us a thumbs up for her, so
Okay.
let's,
Carrie.
Josh is probably on his 12,122nd step. He's giving us a thumbs up.
Yeah. I will say too that if you're a board leader attending these sessions, as you fill this out, you may have questions. This may ring bells for you to say, oh, I don't really know anything about program design, management, evaluation for the organization. Maybe I need to learn a little bit more about that. So feel free, if you really don't know anything or you're not sure, you can just fast forward through that section, skip that section, but it may be helpful for you to sort of understand what are aspects of the organization that you'd like to know more about, or that you want more information about. So hopefully that's helpful. All right.
Thank you, Josh, for that update.
He's well on his way to 15,000.
He's gonna get 15,000. Yeah.
I also saw somebody else that looked like they might be on a stationary bike. Who was that?
Okay.
Who was it I saw that was moving around? Looks like they were cycling.
Okay.
I think Carolyn, did you have a question? Carolyn, did you have a question?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Okay, good. Well, we're right here with you. So if you have a question, we are right here to answer questions for you. It is 11:46, so I'm going to check in with us at 12 o'clock. And hopefully you will have been able to work your way through and indicate what you'd like to work on in the next year, what you want to work on in the next year. And so you're noting those in the survey. Rebecca, I think it's Jennifer. Jennifer, are you on a bike? I am assuming everyone was able to access the survey. I'm assuming that. And again, when you complete that today, we're going to compile that and review that so that we can manage our delivery in terms of what it is that we're sharing to make sure that we are in alignment with what you want, what your focus is. Rebecca, did you want to kind of restate what they'll get? What they'll get after this by completing it?
Sure. It will just be a PDF of the things that you checked off, what practices you checked off under each of those management conditions for every principle that we cover in this series. So it'll just be sort of a reference for you of the things that you checked off. And even as you go past this institute, you'll kind of have that list of things that because you're selecting the things you're going to work on in this year, in the next year you'd like to. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you.
want to do a time check. We're at 11:55. And so at 12 o'clock, we will move into the next part of our work. If hopefully everyone was able to work through those, give us an indication if you were not able to work through those. Okay, I don't see. Great. Okay, I don't see. So you should have worked through. Yeah. All right. Now, Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, in the level 3 that they just did, it was just the 6 that they were doing, right? I saw 12 in the chat. I just want to make sure.
Oh, I think that just means because strategic planning is 12, is that correct?
Oh, the number 12. Okay, got it. Okay,
Yeah, there
great.
should have
Thank
only been
you.
6, so hopefully that's correct. Yeah.
Saw 12. I was like, whoa. Okay. All right. Okay, great. Great. So again, this is, we start every institute off with this approach to help us get kind of settled in and grounded in a kind of a full orientation of the principles and doing a deep dive into what the 6 principles are that we're going to be working on, starting with board governance next week. But we want to orient all of us to these and to give you a go-to place to continue to kind of shore up your understanding of what the principles are that we're going to focus on. And also just being reminded that these are more or less these 6 as well as the 12 are what we also consider primary functions of managing a nonprofit. Now we could definitely add more areas to this, but these are the ones that we focus on for the Institute. And so it's important to us that we leave our work today knowing what those 6 are that we're going to work on, having some sense of what it is that we want to know more about, meaning each of you, what you want to learn more about, that helps us craft our sessions going forward to align with what it is that you've identified. There will be a summary, as Rebecca shared. We will start off our session next week with looking at those results and just kind of hone it in on what it is that you can anticipate moving forward with each of the sessions that we have planned for you. So now what I would like to do is I do want us to do one more breakout before we leave today. This is our first session together, and we want you all to get to know each other better as well. Sometimes that can be a little challenging doing a virtual workshop like we have here. And so we want to incorporate that one more breakout before we leave. I know that was a journey to work through all 6 of those and read those and orient yourself to those management functions and then indicating what you want to work on. But we want you to go into breakout and Rebecca, I didn't leave anything out, did I, before we go into breakout? Okay, thank you. So we want to have you spend some time in a breakout space. And what we want you to discuss is we want you to discuss the practices that you indicated that you want to work on. We want you to share just kind of what you were able to hone in on in terms of what you would like to learn more about. So it's really more or less kind of a show and tell, if you will, just to kind of hear yourself say those things out loud, and for others, maybe to even chime in with some thoughts or comments that they may have about what you have identified. And I know we have 7 groups, so maybe hone in on one of the management functions that you want to share a little bit about what you are anticipating as it relates to that. Rebecca, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Great. I'll go ahead and open up the rooms. A few notes I forgot to share when we first launched the breakout groups. Just a quick note that we do change up the breakout rooms with different members for each session, so you get to interact with different folks from the cohort. But your same group will continue through this session. So the same folks that you met with in your breakout before will be the same folks now. If at any point your group gets stuck or you have a question, you really feel like you want to come back and pop into the main room, just remember what room number you are, and one representative can come back and ask a question or ask for some clarification and sort of be our messenger and go back to the group and share that with the group. Because I know sometimes if you're stuck and you don't know what to do, it can be helpful to come back to the main room with Dr. Palmer and the rest of the staff here.
So, and like always, I'll put the what you're supposed to be doing in the broadcast, so you have that to refer to. And I think we're gonna do 10 minutes, Dr. Palmer.
Yes, it's 12:05, so 12:15 we'll come back. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes.
Welcome back for those of you who are arriving back from the breakout work. One of the things that we want to know before we kind of close out for the day, and as I mentioned before we went into the breakout spaces, that our intent today is to orient us to the capacity building framework of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits in particular, and to kind of lift up the 6 management functions that we're going to be working on, and to really kind of set the stage and get us grounded in how we interpret these management functions by way of our principles and practices guide. And so it is our hope that we've been able to accomplish that. And as you know, as we move forward each week, we have a different topic. And for the most part, for work in this space, the cadence will be very, very similar to what you experienced today. There will be content shared and explained. There will be a little bit of hands-on kind of skill building, leaving you with a tool of some sort that you can utilize later, and kind of connecting the dots, if you will, in terms of how these management functions interface and how they align with how nonprofits actually function. So that said, we'd like to get a bit of a sense of kind of leaving this space today. How are you feeling about your understanding of the framework and the practices and the management functions that we are going to be spending time working on over the next 5 weeks? And any one of us can kind of unmute yourselves and share with us what you're anticipating. And I do see some comments in the chat about, it looks like we've got some feedback in the chat. So what are your thoughts walking away from today and your understanding of where we're headed in particular?
Well, I'm going to jump in because I feel like this was very effective because it helped me to narrow in on the things that are the foundations of what changes that can best help our organization move forward. Now I know from, one category thrive, into the other category sustained. And so just that alone, being able to collect from those 6 and pick, 1 or 2 things that you can focus on gives a sense of freedom that says, I don't have to do everything, oh my God. Oops, I'm sorry. I can just pick these things and focus on them. So it's doable. And that just gives you a sense of fulfillment that you can do that. Take it back to the team.
Thank you, Terry, for your feedback. Thank you. And I do see some comments in the chat too.
You want them read, Dr. Palmer?
Just some of those would be great.
So we have from coming in quick. Janelle, focus on a strong board of directors through practices like be more involved, donations, sponsorships. I like the framework and the opportunity to share. Building a strong foundation is important again. I'm skimming through. Excited to start with zero idea of where to start, and now I have a really excellent outline. That's great. I've gained a lot of understanding from the principles. I wish I had these tasks ahead before putting the board together. Interesting. And if I can just say something real quick, I hope I think it was Rebecca who mentioned about not knowing if they should be a part of the group. If you are a board member, I hope you really realize that you are an integral part in making the organization stronger as a board, and you'll hear this a lot when we go through board governance, because again, it's the board that's helping the ED guide the organization. So, in making sure that it's a strong organization. So hopefully everything that Dr. Palmer went through today and what will continue to go through, you realize, yes, this is the place for you to be. I think that's,
Okay.
Thanks, Janelle. Love
Good.
it. Yeah.
Good.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh,
You go ahead.
this has helped me identify where we are in these categories and what I need to work on to make us stronger. Yep.
Mhm.
I think I've skimmed through
Got
most
it.
of them. Mhm.
Well, thank you all so much for your time today. It was great getting our jump start. And like I said earlier, we're going to get to know each other pretty good over the next few weeks, and I think that's a good thing. Rebecca did share with you that my bio is in your packet, and so there may be some aspects of nonprofit management that you might see in there that you might have more questions about, so don't hesitate to ask. I think I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca or Lisa to close us out.
Yeah, since I'm not going to stand between you and lunch, I'm going to just make this quick. On the screen there, you see please make sure you spend a few minutes filling out our follow-up and evaluation. The link should be in the chat. Honest feedback is always helpful. That's how we continue to improve, as you will hear as we go through. Here's a schedule of our upcoming sessions. So if you are having a conflict with any of these dates, please let us know. So we do take attendance at each session that we have. So that was pretty quick. Rebecca, I'm gonna make you hold them out a few more minutes for lunch. I can blame you.
I'll be real quick, I promise. We do have a Facebook group that you're welcome to join. I'll put the link also in the chat. The link will also be included in the wraparound email. We send out wraparound emails following each session with a link to the slide deck, a link for the recording, any materials we shared that were not in your workbook that we want to share with you. And they're stored in our extranet so that you can access them. But it's just a great way for you to kind of keep track of everything. And then the day before each session, we send that reminder email, and that includes the workbook pages and all that. If any of you mentioned that you didn't receive your workbook yet, I'll be following up with you. Thanks for letting me know. And then the Facebook group link there is optional. We think of it like office hours. So if you have questions as you're mulling over the content or have things that come up that you want to ask, it's an open environment. There's other cohorts even that are included as well. So it's a great way for you to stay in contact with your current cohort, but also connect to other leaders who have been through NPMI before. We will have session questions that will be related to the upcoming session it's typically a poll or a quick thing for you to respond to, and just a way to help us to grease the wheels a bit and get us thinking around the topic that's coming up next. So once you join that group, you have to request to join it because it is a closed private group, but we'll authorize your involvement with that or your membership in that Facebook group. And then you'll start to see questions that will pop up through there leading up to each session. And I hope that's a great resource to you all. Any questions as we close out? I'll give you a few minutes back in your day. All right, Josh, what's the final count here?
Yep. Take us out, Josh.
We get 15,000?
We're at 14,100. So the rest of the day, we'll wrap it right up.
All
There we
right.
have it.
We have
And
a
I see your question about
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. We don't have a group established on LinkedIn, but that's something we could look into if we wanted to have a cohort of leaders. I'm not exactly sure how the LinkedIn does those groups, but we can look into that if there's interest. Feel free to put that in the session evaluation if you do have an interest in linking with others through LinkedIn and some type of private group. Would love to know who else would be interested, and then we can go ahead and get you details about that. Happy to do that. Okay, thanks, Anna.
Thanks,
Is it
Sarah.
Anna or Anna?
It's Anna, but it's fine. I'm used to both.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thanks, Anna.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay healthy.
Bye, everyone.